like what other queer elements of this like romance that you think could be like brought into romance generally?
This is something that you guys have spoken about, which is where I'm picking it up from. But I also think that in general, this book didn't feel like it was trying to create the perfect representation of what queer was.
Mm.
And I think that often when I'm reading a queer romance, like particularly contemporary queer romance, it feels like it's spoon feeding me, like this is good representation, which feel free to disagree with me there. But this book didn't feel like it was doing that. It was just
Yeah.
these characters were queer and that was that. I don't know. There was something in it that
These
didn't
little
feel.
I've got tags. They're actually only bits that I've tagged where they've put in little bits of queer and lesbian culture that I really enjoyed and like was like, ah, yes, I know about that one. But it didn't feel like you said force-fed. I feel
Yeah.
like in a lot of contemporary queer romances, it feels almost like name dropping, but you're doing it with culture to be like, get it? Because I'm in the queer community or
Or
I'm in the lesbian
occasionally,
community. And it feels very like, here's your culture, take it,
Yeah.
spoon-fed.
or
Whereas this was
occasionally
just
like
like,
a
yeah.
PSA segment where they're like, and
Yeah,
of course,
exactly.
Yeah.
gender can be blah 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 blah. Yeah, there's like
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas
They
this
just
just felt
signpost
very
things.
natural. And they've just
They feel like
really,
real people. Not that the other characters
yeah.
in the other contemporary queer
Yeah.
romances
Yeah.
don't feel that way. But I feel like there's something about then removing it from, like, I feel like we should have more queer representation within other genres, like it's doing here, and queer romance within other genres, rather than just queer romance as queer romance, because
Agreed.
Mm.
adding the horror aspect maybe helped in that regard.
I
Yeah.
agree. I feel like the horror gives permission for that imperfection and for the messiness. And like Harry, when you were talking about like them being equals, I think one thing that struck out to me is that they're both actually very possessive and jealous people.
Yeah.
Mm.
But that
Yeah.
isn't played as like something they have to overcome. It's almost like something that makes them able to resist this monster because they're like two freaks who are obsessed with each other, which
Yeah,
is
so
my
obsessed with
favorite
each other.
dynamic in any romance.